Hey everybody, this is me, Undead Viking. I want to take some time out of your day to talk to you about a game called Control. Control is a game with one deck of cards where each player is a time traveler. Through misfortune, both of the time travelers' time machines have become stuck in time. They've run out of fuel and they are at an impasse, and both of them are racing to get themselves slotted back into the time flow, and so they can, be saved and not die, withering away and whatever horrible fate awaits them. Only one person can win, and you basically are racing against the other person to do so. The game has less rules than I have fingers, and it is really, really simple to teach, but as far as mastering it and becoming a very good player at it, and also being able to win, seeing as how I've lost a lot, is very, very, very difficult, and it has a lot of deep gameplay. So let me show you how the game is played, and we'll come back here and I'll tell you more about Control. This is Control, and I've gone ahead and set up a two-player game. To do that, you deal out 5 cards to each player and put the draw deck in the middle. You figure out whoever is going to be the first player by whatever means you wish, and then you go ahead and take one of 4 actions on your turn. Now, you have this handy little card that tells you what the 4 actions are. You can draw a card, you can install a fuel cell, you can burn a fuel cell, and then when you do that to actually enact the ability of the card, notice that it can only be done with bronze-colored fuel cells. I'll get more to that in just a second. Or you can diffuse a fuel cell. Now, taking action, like let's just say I got these 5 cards. Just going to look at them quickly. So you can see we have 4 bronze cards, and we have 1 silver. Each of these has a number on the top, and that is the total power or the value of that card. To win the game, you have to install 21 points worth of these cards in front of you, and when you do that, you've powered up your time machine and you're able to escape. So, but you're not going to just have the other player just sit back and let you do that. So if you take the time to install certain things, you can install this 8, and then you install the 4, so you have 12, and then the 17, and then a 21. That would be theoretically enough to win the game. But the other player is probably not going to sit back and watch you do that and win the game. So, and the thing is that all these cards, except for the cards, the highest value card, have a special ability on the bottom. And the big thing is making sure you get to use those special abilities. Now, to enable you to use the special abilities on bronze cards, you have to actually burn those cards to that's one of the burn a fuel cell right there. By burning the fuel cell, you actually enact the special power on the card. So if the other player, in this case, destroy all silver fuel cells in play. So if the other person, let me just see what they have here. I don't know what I actually dealt them. So let's say they had this reactor and this rift. They're both silver. They've got a total of 6. We could, on our turn, take this anomaly. We burn it. And then we go ahead and discard those 2 cards from them because that's the special power that it has. Now, silver cells, also, some of them have special abilities in the bottom, but to enact those, you have to actually then install them as part of your chain. So with exotic matter, you may install another fuel cell with a charge of 6 or less this turn. So you can go ahead, and this kind of breaks the rules, and so you'd install exotic matter, and then you can go through your card, and we're going to install antimatter as well. Bam, you'd have the total of 10. Now that's a situation where you have a possibility when it's your turn. If you had gotten to 11, and then the other person was sitting there saying, oh, well, then you'd go ahead maybe install that and then follow it up with that card, and you'd win the game, even though the other player might not think you have a chance doing it. Now, cards are kind of your lifeblood. If you don't have cards in your hand, you can't really do anything, and so drawing a card is always a decent idea, especially if you don't have really good options that you have in your hand. The only caveat with that is that if you have 7 cards in your hand, you aren't allowed to draw another card. Finally, you can do what's called diffusing a fuel cell, and I'm just going to pretend the other player is playing. To diffuse a fuel cell, you have to play a card. You can play either a silver or a bronze card, the fuel cell in your hand, that it has equal or higher value than the on top of the installed fuel cell card. So in this situation, we couldn't use the Rift basically because it has a 1 and that doesn't affect anything, but we could use the 9 or the 8 to go ahead and like place it on top of there, and then that would disable and diffuse that person's fuel cell, and to go ahead and place that into the discard. So you can see there's going to be a lot of a back and forth, a lot of seesaw with the gameplay that's going to, like, you're going to be building up, but then the other player's going to be tearing you down. And so you're going to have to actually, take time to actually attack your opponent, but also take time to build as well. And that's one of these cool little balancing acts that you have to do. And basically, sometimes you kind of save cards for different synergies and different combinations. And as you play the game, especially after like the first play, you really learn like what cards are valuable and what cards you can use. And that's why when you have like this card breakdown, you learn they have them back here. It actually, so there's 4 cards of each type. It tells you what the value of the fuel cell is and what color, whether it is bronze or silver over here. And so you can use that. And then, as I said, they are 1 through 10, the value, and the highest level one, the 10, is a Nova, but has no special ability, as you can see. Now, the game does continue on until this deck is emptied. You don't shuffle up the discards or anything like that. So once cards are discarded, they normally, unless there's a weird rule, it doesn't go back into the game unless there's there are cards that allow you to go through the discard and find something. But once that's out, what happens is you go into what's called sudden death. When sudden death happens, each player then gets what's called 1 pass. You don't have a token or anything, but just keep in mind that you have 1 pass. And then each player has to play a card or say pass. And and so then they're going to go back and forth with the remaining cards they have in their hand. And once you have used up your cards or used up your passes, then your turn is skipped, and so then basically the other player gets to play through their cards. If no one reaches 21 through that process and all the cards have been played, then the player with the highest fuel cell charge at the end wins. If a tie still remains, then the win goes to the player with the most cards in play. And if the tie still remains, then the win goes to the player who went latest in the turn order. So that's how so it isn't a situation where you ever really, once all these cards are in the discard pile, you're not shuffling all those back up and re-going. So the game does have a fairly quick, very definitive end. I love the simplicity of the game. I love the fact that once, like I said, you've gone through it and played it once, you kind of learn all the different cards and all the different abilities. And then that's when you start formulating your strategies, formulating your card hookups, your card combos. And also, it's kind of like that peeling of the onion when the game really starts revealing itself to you and revealing its brilliance and its deep gameplay as well. So let me talk more about that in my conclusion, which I'll do right now. As I said, Control is a very simple game. I mentioned that in the introduction, I mentioned that during the gameplay, and I'm mentioning it now. Now, by simple, I do not mean that to be a negative in any way, shape, or form. Yes, it has very, very simple rules. You can teach it in a matter of seconds, but the game itself is very, very, very complex, and as far as putting together that winning strategy is difficult. You either have to I shouldn't say either, because that implies that there's 2 possible ways to win. No, there are so many different strategies that you can kind of fall into or plan, and then when that fails, then you fall into the other one. That it's tough to explain until you've actually played it a few times. This is the game that you can play it in about maybe 5 to 10 minutes. It doesn't take long at all. This is definitely a deck of cards that got thrown into a deck box of mine, along with another small game that is in my backpack that goes with me to work. This is something that I sprang on my coworkers, and we had a great deal of fun with it. And it is, like I said, it's just brilliant. The game itself is just absolutely brilliant. It was kind of like, there's lots of times when I've played over the last year and a half, 2 years, and I alluded to this, where, I've sat down with just like a few simple cards in my hand, and then like 3 hours have gone by, and I played the game 10 times, and I'm just astounded each time I play it. And it's just, and as it opens, the game opens itself up, and you realize there's more and more layers to that onion. I can't say enough just how amazing this game is. It is in Kickstarter right now. Theoretically you're watching this video during that time. If not, I apologize. But I would strongly suggest that if you are a person that enjoys a nice two-player card game, and like I said, it can play 4 players as well. If you enjoy that type of game, that head-to-head, outwitting your opponent type of game, I strongly suggest that you go and back this one. I highly doubt that you will be disappointed. So there you go. That is Control. If you have any questions about the game, please ask away. I'll be happy to answer those to the best of my ability. As always, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. And until next time, I am the Undead Viking, and I'm telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. Alright, bye-bye.